folks, how you doing? I'm Lone Tone, and welcome to the Cannibal Brothers. We're two brothers from Queens, and we're here to take you on a savage journey into the dark corners of popular culture. Again, I'm Lone Tone from New York, and I'm here with...
I'm Rattling Jack from Pittsburgh, PA.
And Rattling Jack is my brother, as legend has it, from the same mother. How you doing, Jack?
You know, it's been a strange week, Tone. It's coming off of the insurrection and all. I'm just trying to make sense of this strange universe we live in.
It's almost like the backdrop from like a 70s Charlton Heston movie, isn't it?
Like Terminal Man. Yeah, we should talk about Terminal Man sometime because it is a politically interesting film. I really haven't watched it in years, but it would be well worth a watch, as would, Charlton Heston's other great science fiction film, Soylent Green.
Yeah, he did some good stuff. And that's what this reminded me of, watching the footage of the Capitol, kind of a backdrop to what's going on in Soylent Green in other areas that you're not looking at, So it was pretty crazy. But, life goes on. Everything will be fine.
This might suggest a possible solution to our political problems because, as you recall, in Soylent Green, protesters were killed, picked up by huge plows, and converted into cheap food.
Right, there you go. I mean, that could be a solution somewhere. But we shall see.
A solution suitable to the Cannibal Brothers.
Absolutely. So is this our inaugural episode? Is this episode 1? Because we did some recording before Halloween, but that never got off the ground. But my idea for that episode is that's going to be our lost episode. When we hit like 500,000 subscribers, 1 million subscribers, and we got Budweiser, Microsoft, and Tesla fighting over sponsorship for us, we're going to introduce the lost episode.
The lost episode, yeah.
It's going to be a big event.
Yeah, they can see what I look like without dentures.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll host it live streamed all over the world. So that's something that we can look forward to. Mm-hmm. But again, it's been a rough week, and I'm ready to move forward. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm ready to move backwards into the future in our kind of archaeology of pop culture. Let's look at, not just what's cool today, but what's been cool in the past. And, I count on your encyclopedic knowledge of the graphic novels universe, and we complement each other. You got me, the egghead with his shelves full of books, and we got you, pop culture maven and a fixture at. I'm going to mention a resonant name from the past: Forbidden Planet Comics.
Oh yeah, the Mecca. Yeah, there's still a location near Union Square Park. I just don't get out that way, unfortunately, very much anymore. But what a wonderful place. Yeah. Especially in the 80s, which is kind of a golden age of like heavy metal and underground comics. And I guess on one note, one more somber note to wrap up 2020, which was a downer year. We lost a few people, and among them, one of my favorite comic artists. Anybody who's read heavy metal would know him, Richard Corben.
Richard Corben.
Yeah, and back in the days, before I hit my teen years and I was reading like Marvel and Archie and Jughead, then I got a little older, got out of comics, then you handed me The Dark Knight Returns, and I said, what the hell is this, Batman? Thinking about Adam West and Burt Ward. I was like, I'm a Marvel guy, all right? I'm into Iron Man, Hulk. This is kid stuff. But you said just read it. And then like, holy shit, I was a believer. Thank you, Frank Miller. But back to the point, we lost Richard Corben at the end of last year. And my introduction to Richard Corben was in heavy metal. You had an issue, and there was that black and white illustrated story of H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu. I don't think an exactly retelling of it, but Cthulhu shows up in it, right? Mm-hmm. That big mess, that monster. So that's what got me into Richard Corben. And, it ignited my memory because really I'd seen Richard Corben before that in Creepy and Eerie magazine. He was a great horror illustrator. But that was kind of when I started paying attention to him. Then I read the story of Ralph. And so I dug up my copy of that. I don't know if you can see it okay here. I'm going to try not to let it shine too much. But I think I'm going to revisit this later tonight and give it a memorial read for the great Mr. Corben.
Mm-hmm. Though I do not have a copy of Ralph, and I have not actually seen it since the 80s or 90s, like I still remember the demon language from Ralph. It was such a foundational sort of comic for me, and just the whole the weirdness of it, the mixture of medieval and modern, right? Because you
Right.
got Ralph is sent off by some little princeling and his wizard, and he's fighting against these demons who are in tanks armed with energy weapons.
Yeah, it kind of harkened back to kind of Italian fascist World War II. The one piece of language I remember is when Ralph blows the tanker's head off. And before he blows his head off, the tanker screams "Nepafu."
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the sound effect for the blaster was like "thud" as the guy's head disintegrated. Corben was really great with gore too, and illustrating kinetic action.
Yeah, he was absolutely one of the greats of that moment. And in America, maybe the premier fantasy comic artist of his time. Yeah.
Right. So R.I.P. Mr. Corben. I don't have a libation tonight, but I'll raise a glass to you. You can raise a glass to him, Jeff. And the next time I have a brewski or a glass of vino, it's for you, Mr. Corben. I've been pursuing you to watch the season finale of The Mandalorian, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I've seen both seasons, and I was telling you something happens at the season finale for season 2 that's magical. And when I watched it, I yelled and cheered. And you finally got around to it, and I was like, what did you think? And we're talking about, and this is a spoiler, but anybody who hasn't seen it by now, it's your fault. Luke Skywalker comes back in all his glory, in a kick-ass scene with his green lightsaber, and there's a portion of his appearance that's reminiscent of the Vader scene in Rogue One. It's kind of a mirror sequence to that, and it just kicks ass. Now Luke shows up, and he's digitally, what do you call it, de-aged?
De-aged.
Yeah, and it's not perfect, but it didn't take me out of the moment. I thought it was beautiful, because what Luke Skywalker has been turned into in the Disney sequel trilogy is this broken old man living on this island who's given up, drinking blue sea milk from a sea cow, which was one of the most bizarre scenes I've ever seen. Thank you, Rian Johnson. But and another thing, how is he getting blue milk in that environment? He was in the desert the first time we saw blue milk.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything in the galaxy dispensing blue milk. I mean, that was like a sea cow. How's it giving out blue milk?
No, there's interstellar trade.
There's interstellar trade, yeah, I guess so. Maybe there's like a desert variant of the sea cow that we saw in Last Jedi. But apparently Luke Skywalker still loved that blue milk. He gave that wink and that head shake. But we got to see, The Mandalorian takes place about 5 years after the fall of the Empire. So I think Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni resurrected Luke Skywalker and gave us the kick-ass, by this point he's a Jedi Master. So we got the kick-ass Jedi Master we always wanted to see in Luke Skywalker. And I remember he said, well, he seemed a little overpowered. I was like, oh, wow. But
that's interesting.
Huh?
I'm starting to understand your argument about this because The Mandalorian, it seemed to me from the very beginning, was making an argument that there is this other organization of warriors who are comparable in their powers to the Jedi. Like there are times when the Mandalorian encounters Ashoka Tano, right?
Right.
They seem rather similar in level of ability, and this is starting to make sense to me, Tom. So you're saying yes. It's not saying that the Mandalorians take a back seat to the Jedi, but we're seeing a Mandalorian in training comparable to early Luke Skywalker compared to a Jedi Master. Of course, the Jedi Master is going to have capacities that are greater. I think that's a great argument. I think that's a great.
And to your point about the Mandalorians and their power, that dark saber that the Mandalorian had the fight with Moff Gideon, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That, if you'll notice, the Moff Gideon, the Mandalorian, I'm sorry, had that spear. The Beskar, is it Beskar spear?
Beskar.
Yeah. The Darksaber started to melt that. While, if you remember in the Ahsoka Tano fight on the other planet, the lightsaber didn't come anywhere near to penetrating that. So the dark saber is actually very powerful, possibly more power than a lightsaber. It's been hypothesized. But
was it not crafted by a Mandalorian Jedi?
Correct.
Yeah.
And you know, for anybody, it's kind of important to watch the Clone Wars to get really excited about Ahsoka Tano, even though I know you like that episode. Great samurai. Great samurai kind of support storyline.
Absolutely.
The Clone Wars kind of gives you a background to a lot of the stuff that Dave Filoni was involved had at the end in Clone Wars, as did Jon Favreau. So watching them bring some live action stuff to the screen is great, and it was very exciting for me. And it's kind of cool that Jon Favreau is from our neighborhood, and you know, he was an usher at the RKO Keith's, one of our local theaters, a classic vaudeville theater. Originally one theater, they split it into 3. And he was an usher around the same time we were going there watching the Star Wars trilogy, probably more around the Return of the Jedi. So it's quite possible that we may have been sitting there and Jon Favreau may have come up to us and said, hey guys, could you put that out?
Could you put that out?
Yeah, you never know. So I think that's real cool. So just for the future, Jeff, remember, as a Queens guy and as a Star Wars fan, you can never critique anything from Jon Favreau. Otherwise, you're going to be suspect. I mean, you may be being watched right now. I don't know.
You mean people might think that it's a long-held anger at like him telling me that like you couldn't bring in outside beverages?
Yeah, exactly. Well, part of the charm of our old movie theaters and watching movies in the 80s was, you remember those little 8-ounce Budweiser bottles?
Yes. And
it would always be during a quiet point in the movie where somebody would knock over their empty Bud bottle that they put on the floor next to their feet, and you'd hear that tinkling going down, you know, because the movie theaters are slanted, and you hear that rhythmical tinking going down, and whoever knocked it over was like, oh shit, and you know, it always makes its way all the way to the front of the theater.
Is that why you ultimately chose Foster's Lager as the perfect libation for viewing cinema in the theater?
It's perfect. It's the size of an oil drum, and you know, it lasts, and you know, it's a little more stable, and you know, it's not going to roll as far because it's lighter. It doesn't have that momentum.
A few days ago, you and I had a conversation about the 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, and I wonder if you're willing to put on record which season do you prefer?
There are episodes from each season that I really like. Being a Clone Wars fan, me and Johnny watched the Clone Wars quite a bit. I think season 2 was a little more exciting for me because of the introduction of Ahsoka Tano and the dark saber. And knowing that you were going to encounter a Jedi, and the fact that it was Luke was over the top for me. But The Mandalorian season 1 is excellent. The Mandalorian made me believe in Star Wars again, you know? And apparently there's 2 factions over at Lucasfilm right now. There's the Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni faction, and there's the Kathleen Kennedy faction, which apparently is very involved in identity politics and stuff. And, you know, people's opinions, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni just want to tell good stories. So there's kind of apparently a civil war going on at Lucasfilm over control of who's going to move the overall dynasty forward. Although apparently both teams still have a lot of involvement in different projects. But I would say that the first season was excellent, but the second season made me feel like a kid into where it was going, and just my enjoyment of the Clone Wars and how it started to tie in. And maybe next season we'll see Admiral Thrawn, or when the Ahsoka Tano series launches, we're going to see the character Admiral Thrawn, who is big in the Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. And he has his own star fleet. He has his own fleet of Star Destroyers.
Why can't I have my own fleet of Star Destroyers?
I've got the Star Destroyer you gave me, at least a print up out there.
That's awesome.
So I've got something else. I'm thinking about building a Lego Star Destroyer, but that's a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
If you were closer, I'd probably get that.
Yeah, you know, I remain a Mandalorian season 1 fan, and I remember the excitement with which, like, I viewed those first episodes, and I'm like, oh man, Lone Wolf and Cub, the Baby Cart series, right?
Yeah.
Which is one of the huge influences on Mandalorian, right? So in Lone Wolf and Cub, the Japanese manga and anime, it's a manga and live action series.
Right.
I'm trying to remember, do you remember the name of, he was Kaishakunin Ogami Ito, right? He had been
Right.
the shogun's Lord High Executioner, and there is a purge, and he is forced to flee Edo with his son in a baby cart, and then goes around turning people into hamburger over various disputes in feudal Japan. The the harking back to classic samurai film in the first season, I loved, and Werner Herzog as the client, you know, the
Yeah, that was cool.
unrepentant imperial officer was
Right.
brilliant. I would put his performance on par with anyone who has ever played an imperial officer.
No, he was the best. I'm afraid it's too bad he checked out earlier on. He would have been good in season 2, as well. But I guess they had to center on Moff Gideon as the big baddie.
You know, judging from the Clone Wars, in Star Wars, you never know if someone's dead.
True. Yeah, absolutely. We shall see. There's rumors they're going to bring Mace Windu back. He had a long fall, but who knows? I mean, he was a pretty powerful Jedi. But if there's a good way to bring him back in the story, why not? But yeah, season 1, and one of the reasons it made me believe in Star Wars again, and in Favreau and Filoni, is like, this is Lone Wolf and Cub. These guys have been around. They know what's cool, and they're bringing this back. And for anybody that's not familiar with Lone Wolf and Cub, if you want the condensed Reader's Digest version, you can track down Shogun Assassin, which is basically all the most violent parts of the Lone Wolf and Cub series. I have one of the Lone Wolf and Cub DVDs. I know it has a really funky soundtrack to it, musical soundtrack, but Shogun Assassin is going to basically give you everything you need to know.
We will.
And if you want to see a lot of heads flying.
We will revisit this in our first classic samurai film episode, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I have to talk about Zatoichi and his huge influence in Star Wars, including Chirrut Imwe in Rogue One.
Right.
But that is another episode. And I think tonight you wanted to talk a little about mechs, right? You wanted to talk about Japanese Gundam.
Yeah, something I came across on YouTube, something else coming out of Japan. In Yokohama, they built a little museum, and they built a life-size Gundam mech robot on a launching pad. And the thing is way cool. And you can go to YouTube and look it up. There's a few videos from tourists that have been there posted on YouTube. I think the coolest ones are at night when the pad and the mech itself is all lit up. It's way cool. There's like a loudspeaker, which kind of says, oh, getting ready for takeoff, all this stuff in Japanese and English. I guess my only drawback on this, when you have a life-size mech, it's going to look great. Thank you, Japan, never change. But when it starts to move, the thing is like, a mech is, futuristic. It's at a point in the future where the hydraulics are such where it can move like a human being, even a martial artist. When it starts to move, it's very slow and lumbering. So that kind of took me out of it, but it was kind of like, I guess they're testing the movement, getting ready for takeoff, then something apparently fails in the little act they put on, and then they're able to bring the mech back online. But watching it, I was like, wow, this is way cool, but is there a fucking bar in it? Is there a bar? Is there a hotel in there that makes you feel like you're flying through space? Or is it just you go look at it for this 10-minute spiel and that's it? In any event, they went and built the thing, so I'm happy it exists on planet Earth,
Mm-hmm.
But it's really neat. But you and I have been to mechs. I mean, when I was a kid, it was the Shogun Warriors and stuff, and I love games like Mech Warrior, and I love Pacific Rim. That got mixed reviews, but anytime you have a big budget giant mech versus giant monsters movie, directed by Guillermo del Toro, I'm not going to complain about it.
Yep.
But you have some opinions on mechs yourself, right? You have some favorites.
So I've never been a fan of the classic Gundam mech anime.
Right.
It's not to knock it, and the people who love that stuff, but by all means. And in fact, at the edges of the sort of giant mech anime, there are a number of things that I love. And the thing that I love that is closest to the classic Gundam is a rather old anime called The Big O. Do you know The Big O?
I've heard of it and I've probably seen it, but I'm not in depth on it.
So the Big O brings together a whole bunch of things. For one thing, like one of the big references in the Big O is the 1960s Patrick McGoohan, The Prisoner. You'll recall that in The Prisoner, number 6 is kidnapped from London after resigning from some kind of intelligence position and finds himself on an island with a bunch of other people who have been disappeared there for purposes that are not understood. The Big O is really similar. In Paradigm City, which looks a lot like New York City with domes, in Paradigm City, 40 years ago, there was what was called the event, and no one remembers who they were before that, right? And you've got Roger Smith, who's a person of some significance in Paradigm City, and he's the dominus. He's bonded to this mech, the Big O. And it's very Batman. He has a butler named Norman, who is clearly, interestingly, very early on in the series, a woman falls in love with him, R. Dorothy Wainwright, and she's a robot. And she's very deadpan. The interesting thing about Dorothy is when shit goes down, right? When the mechs are fighting and someone's bringing in the secret weapon to destroy the Big O, Dorothy goes out, right? And she rides a bicycle. But because she's a robot, she can ride a bicycle at 100 miles an hour. So she's this frail little woman, a frail, attractive woman riding a bicycle at 100 miles an hour. The Big O, very interesting. And I strongly recommend checking it out. As a matter of fact, one of my students just in the spring was like, "Hey Jeff, have you ever heard of the Big O?" And I said, the Big O. Interestingly, the mechs in the Big O are called Megadeus, right? They're called the great gods, right? And it is interestingly quasi-religious. And what's the bond between the mech operator and these robots that only they can call them up and control them? Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of the Evangelions on Blu-ray, the first movie and the second movie. I never really watched the series, and there's a lot of opinions about whether the movies held up to the series.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're graphically pretty way out, and I have to revisit them again. But I thought the whole concept of, some of the concepts in Japanese sometimes have a hard time interpreting,
mm-hmm.
But they were fighting these angels that were coming down to destroy the earth. And it's pretty mind-blowing. I got to take a look at those Blu-rays again and get myself up to speed on mech animation.
Evangelion kind of points to my other favorite mech anime, which is just the totally weird Furikuri, FLCL, right?
Right.
And it takes the tropes of giant mech anime and being a mech operator and just turns them completely on their head and sticks them in the narrative of a coming of age, junior high school protagonist. There's a great, and his relationship to this mech, Lord Conti, is a strange one. He is, in a sense, the mech operator, but it's not glamorized in a certain sort of way. As a matter of fact, there is at one point a mech battle, and at the end of it, Lord Conti poops out Nauta as a pile of shit.
Right.
He's just lying there on the ground. But it is also this kind of fabulous these battle scenes with these strange. The design for Furikuri is at times very Dada. So you'll recall the medical mechanica plant looks like an old hand iron, the kind you heat over the fireplace. And at the climax of Furikuri, not to give away serious spoilers, a mech in the shape of a giant hand is trying to grab the iron.
Wow.
And of course, one of the fabulous things about Furikuri is this mysterious agent, a woman who rides a yellow Vespa, and her name is Haruhara Haruko, and she does battle with a guitar, or maybe it's a bass. I think it may be a bass, remembering now. And it's so here you have mobile suits and a girl like flying on a cannon shell, using a guitar as a weapon, and just this craziness. Oh, and the thing that brings it all together, and one of the things I love about Footy Cootie is often in entertainment, when you want to invoke a certain kind of rock and roll, you get like studio musicians to come and produce fake rock and roll that sounds like it. In Footy Cootie, what they did is they went out and they licensed all this music by the fabulous Japanese band The Pillows, hugely influenced by the Pixies in America. So underneath like all of this fabulous visual action is this absolutely first-rate metally punk soundtrack that really ties the whole thing together and gives it its identity. And if you haven't been out there watching Footy Cootie, which now, by the way, I've been talking about Footy Cootie season 1, and there are multiple seasons now. This is something that you need to be, absolutely need to be watching.
I think you gave me some music by The Pillows in some format. I think this was pre-digital when you were making this for me. But I think you give me some of that music, and I'm going to look them up on YouTube.
Yeah.
I remember I liked it. But, as far as next, you figure we'd have freaking next by 2021. You know what I mean? So we're kind of behind the 8 ball here.
Oh, hang on for a second, because we have incoming from our special correspondent embedded in DC at the very moment. Take it away, Zach Bird.
Man, how's it going?
Listen, man, I understand that things there are getting pretty hot. Can you tell us a little of what's going on?
Yeah, dude, I'm just chilling pretty hard right now. We got some peepers that one of these nice gentlemen gave me, so I'm just kind of sitting back, just chilling.
Can you tell us about the conditions in DC?
Yeah, they're pretty sweet. I mean, we're kind of all just hanging. A lot of people really into some shit. Couldn't tell you what. But it seems pretty sweet. Pretty chill. I'm gonna have to say, for all intents and purposes, I'm having a good time.
Good. Okay.
I just wanted to talk about, like how sweet chilling in our nation's capital is, and just slamming back some good old-fashioned PBR, a great American beer. I think we can all agree in this sweet time that we're living in, where like everything's pretty much like boring and chill, that we can all just kind of get around a delicious, refreshing beer like Pabst Blue Ribbon. Yeah,
I'm gonna have to edit that out because they're gonna sue me, but that's fine.
Also, this fledgling podcast is sponsored by Pabst Blue Ribbon, so anytime, any and all opinions in this podcast are strictly endorsed by the good people at Pabst Blue Ribbon Brewed.
Zach, I'm afraid you got it wrong. We're not endorsed by Pabst Blue Ribbon. We're fueled by Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Exactly. If I could figure out a way to just, take my blood out and do this, just some good old PBR infusions, I'd much rather do. I mean, like, look what you're doing. Sitting there in your liberal ivory tower, sipping a hard cider, when me and the real patriots have to hang out on this blustery day and drink PBR. You're just speaking to the divide in this nation right now, Jeff. I hope you realize that.
Honestly, somebody has to be the enemy within, and some of us are willing to pick up that mantle.
Also, let's give a quick shout out to Pornhub. They're everything, all express. We're gonna get DCMA. Fuck it.
Unfortunately, didn't Pornhub dump 80% of its content 2 weeks ago?
Just because a couple 17-year-olds got through the filter, come on now. There's got to be a margin of error there that put 20 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds, mix them all up, put them in a lineup, and tell me to pick them out. Come on now. I'm not a fucking superhero, Jeff. We all make mistakes. That's why America's such a great country. It's all about the second chances.
I hear that. I hear that.
Legal age of consent being 16 in Ohio. Tell me, Jeff.
That's Ohio.
I think that's what the founding fathers would want. But we're not here to talk about the age of consent and whether or not it should be lowered. It's not the point of this podcast. So, but yeah, it's pretty sweet here. Wish you were here, bud. Be having a lot of time, a lot of like-minded people here. Definitely having a blast.
Well, listen, grab me some souvenirs if you get a chance.
I saw a podium. I saw somebody walking around with a podium. I might ask him if I could trade a sixer for it.
Hey, can I ask you a question from your own expertise? And that is, what do you think about the arms preparation of the protesters that you're seeing around you right now?
The arms preparation, like how buff are their arms?
No,
I've been
I'm
seeing
not.
some jacked guys out there. They're looking pretty swole.
I'm not talking guns. I'm talking guns.
Yeah, there's a couple of them you can tell been hitting the gym. Looks good. I like it. No, I don't know. Everybody's wearing those like sweet like paintball helmets. I don't really know what for. I don't think anybody's playing paintball out here, but they look sweet.
What do you call it? Tactical chic, right?
Yeah, dude, tactical. That's why do you think I'm wearing this, dude? I'm trying to blend in so nobody can see me.
I wasn't sure if you had another shirt.
No, it's all camo.
No, that was something that troubled me, is how easily I could melt into that crowd.
Right? Dude, it'd be sweet. I mean, unironically, I do wish I was there. Just just for the lulz. Would I be one of the dudes going into the Capitol? Now that I see what's going on, hindsight's 2020. I'm gonna say no. But I don't know. It'd be funny if just my aunt or my grandma or somebody just like that's what's happening. Everybody's just going down, just snitches in their family.
No, it's amazing.
Uncle Roy, remember that one time you dropped an N-bomb at Thanksgiving? Well, I just gave your information to the FBI. Like, you son of a bitch.
So you safe there?
I've never felt safer in my life.
Yeah? You've secured your area?
No, yeah, it's just, there's everybody. I know if some shit goes down, I could ask any one of these chuckleheads to help me out. They can probably give me some of their paintball gear I can throw on. I'm sure that'll probably stop the list.
Well, listen, something to think about while you're watching the action in D.C. is our upcoming episode on the great fights of science fiction and fantasy.
I'm excited for that. I have strong opinions, and I'm pretty sure that people are gonna just troll the shit out of me in the comments. I don't even know where we're posting this or whatever, if there's gonna be live comments, but I have some strong opinions that I will not back down from.
Okay. I think that's going to be a multi-parter. I think this is we'll bring in each of us one fight that we want to talk about for the first episode. We'll have our dust up about that, and then we'll come back with others as we bring in more and more cool stuff that we want people to know about.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah.
Well, listen,
sci-fi fantasy.
Comic books, fair game. Film and novel, whatever you're thinking about. Well, listen, Zach Bird, take good care of yourself. Avoid the traffic stops and the cordons, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, dude. I'm just gonna mill around here a little bit, maybe pop off some selfies. It seems to be what everybody else is doing. So, I'll see what I can get. Maybe I could just run down in Nancy Pelosi's office, snag you a little paperweight or something.
See what you can do. But if anyone asks you, you don't know me.
Never have, never will.
Well, Mr. Bird, good night, and God bless America.
God bless it, God damn it.
Well, thanks a lot for that illuminating spot. This is the time in the Cannibal Brothers where we introduce you to things out there in the world of art, popular culture, horror, the graphic novel that you might not know about, but we think you really have to check out. And Tony, have you got something for us this week?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about a podcast briefly that's out of Washington, I believe. It's the Drunk Ex-Pastors. It's co-hosted by these guys, Jason and Kristen, and they're actually, earlier in their lives, they were pastors and ministers. They've moved on, and years later, they have different outlooks on life, politics, religion, pop culture. They cover it all, and they're two really smart and funny guys. And the way the genesis of their podcast was, they like to get together every so often, have some drinks, and just bullshit with each other. And I believe one of their brothers or one of their siblings said, hey, you know, you guys are funny. You should record this. And they started recording. Now they have a pretty big following. If you're ever in the mood to listen to just two guys banter, again, talking anything from religion to Star Wars, what have you, pop culture, these guys are a good listen. They tend to be a little left-leaning, so if you're ultra-conservative, it's not going to be your bag. But that's my recommendation for this video. What do you got?
You know, I thought about this a lot, and I looked around my office, and I'm going to do a bit of a blast from the past. It's a book. I've got it right here. This here is the Codex Serafinianus by the Italian artist Luigi Serafini, and it is a sort of encyclopedic compendium of details about a world like ours and yet completely different in a completely invented language, so you can't read it, but it's absolutely fascinating. I mean, if you, it explores the natural history of this world. Again, somewhat reminiscent of our own, but utterly different. And this is a book. Not a lot of people know about it. A lot of artists know about it. It circulates. You know, I wouldn't say that, you know, go on the internet and there's a PDF out there, but go on the internet because there's a PDF of it out there. And someone asked me, an artist at a show said to me, "Have you ever heard of the Codex Serafinianus?" And I said, "Have I heard of it? I have a copy." So if you're into, I mean, if you can imagine, you know, the Encyclopedia Britannica from a parallel universe, then that's the Codex Serafinianus. Except, I mean, executed, you know, with a surrealist artistic eye, second to none. So if you like, you know, if you like Rene Magritte, check out Luigi Serafini. Check out the Codex Serafinianus. I think it's something very close to unique.
Is it reminiscent of Wayne Barlow's work?
Oh, absolutely. Especially if you're thinking about Wayne Barlow's work in something like Barlow's Inferno. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I happen to have that right behind me. No, that's wonderful. So I suppose we can wrap up. I guess what is our inaugural episode?
Yes, this one's in the can. I think this one is
in the books.
Yeah, this is this doesn't go in the discard pile.
Hey, you know, one thing I just recalled is, didn't Mad Max happen in 2021? That's what people are saying. Or did the Road Warrior happen in 2021?
Oh gosh, we might have to come back with data on that one.
Yeah, I've been seeing that online, but hopefully everything works out better. But folks, we're very happy that you joined us. Please like and subscribe if you like what you saw. You know, we need to get 1 million subscribers so we can release that lost episode. And you know, in the words of the great Bill and Ted, you know, be cool to each other. Peace. We're going to have a better year this year, and we look forward to putting out more content and hopefully hearing back from you folks. Please comment if you get a chance.
Yes, if you're into listening to two old guys from New York City talk about popular culture, then please join us again for our next episode, when I think we're going to be talking about, are we not going to be talking about the great battles of science fiction and fantasy?
Absolutely, I'm in for that.
Okay,
so hear about that. Who doesn't want to hear two old guys from Queens talking about science fiction and pop culture?
Yeah. So looking forward to season 1, episode 2, the great battles of science fiction and fantasy.
Well, Jack, great seeing you and talking to you as always. And folks, we hope that you follow us, and we'll talk to you soon.